She moaned another man's name in bed with her husband lying right beside her. Not once, twice, and both names, they belonged to men her daughters would later call family. For years after, she rewrote history. She told her daughters their father was to blame for everything. She hit them. She convinced them to call the police on their own dad. She built a beautiful new life, paid for in large part by the man she had already betrayed. And her daughters, they believed every word. Because why wouldn't they? She was their mother. But on one ordinary afternoon, a police visit that found nothing still managed to unravel everything. The truth came out, not just about the affair, but about who their mother had always been beneath the performance. This is the story of a 16-year-old girl whose entire childhood turned out to be a lie. Let me take you back to the beginning. To understand how far these lies stretched, you have to understand the household these girls grew up in. Their parents were combustible together, two people who probably never should have married but did and spent years making each other and their children pay for that mistake. The fighting was constant, and not just raised voices. Physical, dishes thrown, walls shaking. More often than not, it was their mother who escalated things, who crossed that line first. But here's what made it complicated. Their mother wasn't cruel in every moment. She could be warm, hardworking, the kind of woman who made you feel like the most important person in the room. Their father, while not perfect, had always been a genuinely good parent. That's what made the chaos so disorienting. You couldn't just file them into villain and hero and move on. These girls spent their childhood in the eye of a storm, trying to love two people who couldn't occupy the same space without destroying it. And they did it the way children always do, quietly, stubbornly, without being asked whether they were okay. Their parents officially divorced when the older girl was 13. But the real break came before that, on Christmas Day, 2022. Her mother simply packed her things and left. No build-up, no real goodbye. Just gone, in the way that feels like the floor has been ripped out from beneath you. At the time, neither girl questioned it much. When chaos has been the baseline for as long as you can remember, its absence almost feels stranger than its presence. For the first couple of months, the girls stayed with their dad. Then, around February, they moved into a small apartment with their mother. And something was different about her. She was lighter, more present, smiling in a way the girls hadn't seen in years. They read it as a new beginning. The air felt cleaner in that little apartment. Their mother carried herself like a woman who had finally gotten exactly what she wanted. What the girls didn't yet understand was exactly what, and who, that was. Not long after settling in, their mother introduced them to Daniel. She said they had been friends for a long time, just friends, and she delivered that line with such effortless calm that no one thought to question it. Daniel was, by every visible measure, exactly what a broken family needed. Steady, patient, no raised voice, no erratic moods. He had 2 kids of his own, close in age to the girls, and they all blended so naturally it almost felt designed. Slowly, this new arrangement started to feel real. The step-siblings became something like actual siblings. The small apartment gave way to something larger. Their mother's happiness, whatever it was built on, seemed genuine. It looked like healing, like things finally working out for everyone. But beneath that warmth, something else was already forming. Because around the same time, their mother began changing toward her older daughter. Not the warm version, the other one. Little did anyone in that household realize the foundation of this new life had been laid long before the old one officially ended. She started hitting her. During arguments, usually, and she always had a reason ready. The kind of reason that sounds like pain but functions like a weapon. She told her daughter she reminded her too much of her father. Think about what that means for a second. You are being punished for existing in the wrong image, for having the wrong face, the wrong voice, the wrong way of standing in a room. And if you fought back, which her daughter sometimes did, it only made things worse. But the physical abuse wasn't even the most damaging thing happening in that house. Because simultaneously, her mother was rewriting history, feeding her daughters a version of events in which their father was the villain, the cause of everything, the reason the family had shattered. And it was convincing, patient, detailed, so convincing that this girl called Child Protective Services on her own father. Twice. She was trying to protect the people she loved, acting entirely on lies her mother had planted over months. The manipulation was total. The cruelty was precise. And it worked exactly as it was designed to. By 16, here's where things stood. Her father was paying $3,000 a month in child support. $3,000 every single month. And where was that money going? Not to her, not to her sister. Their mother barely spent it on the girls at all. Meanwhile, she and Daniel had purchased a house. A real house, comfortable, spacious, landscaped. Built in no small part on checks signed by the very man she had betrayed. The girls still rotated between both homes on a weekly schedule, carrying bags and backpacks between two worlds. And through all of it, the official story remained intact. The divorce had been about incompatibility, about their father's temperament. Their mother had been hurt, had survived, had rebuilt. That was the version. Neat, clean, entirely fabricated. That's the thing about a well-maintained lie, it doesn't look like a lie. It just looks like your life. And nobody in their world had any reason to question it. Until the day the police knocked on the wrong door and accidentally opened the right one. It started with an ordinary argument. A teenager having a rough day, the kind that happens in every family. She has bipolar disorder, and the episode was dark. She fought with her father and called her mother in tears. That should have been the end of it, but one of her step-siblings overheard the call. Acting out of what they genuinely believed was concern, they told their own mother, Daniel's ex-wife, that something was wrong, that the girl might be in danger. Daniel's ex called the police. Officers arrived at the father's door, they walked through the house, asked questions, found absolutely nothing because there was nothing to find. A misunderstanding. A chain reaction of well-meaning people that led somewhere it had no business going. The police left. And the father, still shaken, still processing, gathered his daughters at the kitchen table. He wanted them to understand. He had held something for years. He decided in that moment that they deserved to know what was actually in the divorce paperwork. What he said next didn't land gently. Truth withheld long enough never does. It arrives like a wall. He pulled out the divorce paperwork, and he walked them through it, calmly, carefully, the way you do when you have been carrying something alone for years, and finally decide to set it down in front of the people who deserve to know. The marriage did not end because of incompatibility. It did not end because he was difficult, or emotionally distant, or any of the soft explanations their mother had offered over the years. It ended because of a moment that could not be explained away. One night, in their own home, their mother said a name that was not her husband's, and then later she said another. He noticed both times. He stayed quiet at first, but the names burrowed in, and when he started quietly looking, what he found was not a single slip in a long marriage. It was an ongoing affair, possibly more than one, and both names belonged to men who were not strangers to this story. Remember when I said their mother told them Daniel was just a friend? A long-time, completely platonic friend? He wasn't. He was never just a friend. Daniel, that was one of the names she had said. The calm, steady, patient man who had stepped into their lives as though he'd always meant to be there because he had. Just not in the way anyone was supposed to know. He was there before the divorce, before the Christmas morning departure, before the tiny apartment and the fresh start and the carefully built new life. He was part of the reason the old life ended. The other name? Jake. A man who, at the time, had actually been one of Daniel's friends, which means the deception wasn't brief or desperate. It was layered, sustained. It involved enough people that she had lost track of whose name to say in the dark. Both girls started crying, because in the span of a single conversation, the entire story they had been told about their family, who caused the pain, who deserved the blame, who had been wronged, was inverted. Every time their mother presented herself as the wounded woman, a lie. Every time she hit her daughter and said she reminded her too much of her father, a deflection from her own guilt. The man paying $3,000 a month, he had been telling the truth the entire time. Here's what makes it even harder to sit with. This wasn't a single act of weakness in an otherwise honest life. Her first marriage, before the girl's father, had also collapsed. The reason for that? A gambling addiction. A compulsion she apparently never fully dealt with, never disclosed to the daughters who thought they knew her. So what they were now looking at wasn't an isolated mistake. It was a pattern. A woman who takes and deceives and leaves and rebuilds and does it again. And now these girls had to figure out how to exist in the same world as her, how to sit across from her at dinner, how to receive her calls, how to be in the same house as someone who had hit them, turned them against their own father, used their pain as cover, and built a comfortable life on money that was meant for them. That is not a small thing to carry at 16. That is years of carefully constructed reality collapsing all at once, and having to find solid ground somewhere in the rubble of it. There's no clean ending here. No single dramatic moment where karma swept in and balanced the scales with a bow on top. But there is something, there is the truth, which sounds small until you consider how long it was actively kept from her and at what cost and to whose benefit. This girl spent years being shaped by a false story, Who to trust, who was at fault, what her family actually was. She turned against her own father because of it, and now she knows. She cannot unknow it, and that knowledge, painful as it is its own kind of power, because the person who held the narrative no longer controls it. Cold karma doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's just the moment when the person who defined your entire world loses that ability because you finally see them clearly. If this story hit somewhere real for you, drop a like and subscribe. Every day, we tell the stories that prove one thing: the truth always finds a way out, no matter how deep it was buried, no matter how long it took.